Hello, all. Welcome to the Indian Film Festival of Cincinnati. I'm Rati Apana, the Executive Director of the Indian Film Festival. And with me is the beautiful, talented, and very successful director, Tanuja Chandra. Welcome, Tanuja.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's a pleasure always. Sisters in the sunset of their lives is the subject of today's film, Auntie Sudha and Aunty Radha. I know all of you enjoyed it, and it took you to a place that you are all familiar with, maybe an aging parent or a grandparent or a friend. But first, let's tell you about Tanuja Chandra herself. So Tanuja is a very accomplished, very talented and successful director in Bollywood, frequently directing women-oriented films where the female characters are the main protagonists of her film. Chandra began her career in, she tells me, 1995 and made her directorial debut with a couple of TV series, Zameen Aslan and Mumkin, and I'm sure some of you over here remember those very well. And then she went on to do films. So she wrote several films. She wrote Tamana, Dil To Pagal Hai, Zakham, and then she went on to direct Dushman, Sangarsh, Ye Zindagi Ka Safar, and then she began to write and direct her films. And she did Sue, she did Film Star, she did Hope and a Little Sugar, and she did Kareeb Kareeb Single with Irfan Khan in it, which most of you remember, very having watched it quite recently ourselves. And she also directed Zindagi Rocks and Silver. That's a huge accomplishment, in a span of just 15 or 20 years. Welcome. Welcome, Tanuja. It's lovely to have you. You,
Thank you.
yeah, you've given us such a delightful film. It's the old world charm, the different religious communities working together in harmony. And it's so wonderful to see because, that's the India I grew up with. The joy in aging gracefully. And you just capture the emotions on the faces of all of the people in this beautiful film. You have these great close shots, and it was like this dance of harmony throughout the whole film. It just didn't feel like a documentary. Just, it was just so lovely. And I'm sorry to hear that just 2 weeks ago we lost Auntie Sudha. May her soul rest in peace. What a delightful character.
Yes.
Absolutely delightful. So, Tanuja, you're a very successful director. So many hits to your name. And then along comes this docu-story. You're sort of capturing life as is. And it's such a marvelous feat. How is it different to you as a director working on this film as compared to everything else that you've done before?
Well, let me start by saying not nearly as successful as I want to be. So I would say, I would say half the journey is still ahead of me, and I would say the better half. Uh, this film, of course, is very close to my heart because it's my own aunts, and I've grown up with them. I through my childhood, they've been so loving, and like my mother, I've stayed with them in their homes in the summers and the winters. I always found the two of them really cute and funny, and I wanted to make a film on them. It became a story for me when of course they retired to the village after both their husbands had passed, and in the village they were looked after by this adopted family, of people from different communities. And to me it was just such a wonderful little oasis of warmth. This is really what the world should be. This is really what the world should be able to do, is to live. We should all be able to live with each other in a happy sort of codependent, like we should be dependent on each other, and we should be able to take care of each other, which I find the world is more and more unable to do. So that's why it became like just a beautiful subject for me to explore. And And honestly, I'd started out as a kind of a journalist, sort of television journalist, in the sense that I used to make little stories on subjects of like social interest, about people, and that's how I started out. So I mean, to me, and even today, when I am now getting ready to do my next project,
Yes.
my inspiration comes from life. I mean, my references more than other. Yes, we all have references of our favorite films and our favorite mm,
Yeah.
you know uh, cinematography and production design, but to me, my references come from more from real life, because those are the individualistic, unusual, quirky, uh, more the most original ones, and real life has always been my subject, or my source of inspiration. So I loved going to the village with my crew, and just following these two women, because they were so oblivious of the camera. um, and they were just happy to talk to me, and it was a lot of fun.
How long were you there with?
We were there for a week. I had never visited the village before. They'd been calling me for years,
Mm.
and we are all so busy with our own lives, right? So we tend to say that, oh yes, I'll visit, but I never did.
Never did.
But fortunately, because of this film, I was able to. uh,
Mm. Lovely. And they knew that you were going to be filming them,
yes,
and
yes,
yeah, you
I'd
just
taken
do.
permission. But the thing with people of of another generation completely is this, that they're just not familiar with the trappings of entertain, in the sense of social media, and of you know uh, people sort of presenting themselves in a certain way for the world. They're these two are the opposite of that. So completely, unself conscious. uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, so they were happy to, basically they were just going through a series of conversations with me, and so were the domestic help was the same. Even they were not aware of the camera at all, actually.
Yeah. That must
um, yeah,
have,
and they were hosts more than anything, and this is what the culture of small town is, that they
yeah.
were the hosts to my team. They used to feed us all the time, and look after us.
Oh my, that must have been so much fun to spend that whole
Yes,
week, right?
yes,
And
yes.
beautiful place. Now this is your ancestral home, you said, right?
As in, it's my aunt's home. So this is my father's sisters. Both these are my father's sisters. So it's not my ancestral home. It's
Mm.
my older bua, the 94-year-old. It's her home.
It's her home.
Yes,
Absolutely beautiful. And she also talks about having had a child who needed special assistance, right?
yes.
And but then she doesn't say anything more about him after that.
She doesn't. Yeah, I mean, both of them have had fairly difficult lives, actually, and this is another reason I wanted to make this film, is because now, for the first time in their long lives,
Mhm.
um, are they living the life that they've always wanted to, in a sense, which is carefree, which is not responsible to anyone, not working for other people all the time,
Right.
just lying in that large bed, gossiping with each other, talking to each other, sitting in the sun during the winters,
Mhm.
growing vegetables in their vegetable garden, and so yeah, so it's a great retirement plan for, I think, a lot of women. If not with sisters, then with friends, because our girlfriends are like our sisters.
Exactly. I mean, I was thinking the same. It was just such a delightful film. I want to also have you talk to the audience a bit about the process because making this documentary, I'm sure you had a lot of footage, and then you had to do some real editing work. Now, were you closely involved in that? How did you actually go through that process?
So we actually had two cameras, because we realized that when you're in real life, there isn't a second take, and we're just gonna have to capture
What?
everything that we can. Uh, So
Yeah.
we had two cameras, which means that we had a total of almost like, 150 hours of
Mm.
footage, which for a film that ended up being 2 hours is a lot, of course. My editor is a really accomplished senior editor. He actually gave it shape in the sense that I
Yeah.
tend to be, as you might notice from my fiction, I tend to veer towards more serious drama. I love drama. I love the seriousness of things in life. I like to explore that. Um,
Yeah.
he said that that let's stick to the happy and joyous part of it. Let's make the film, unlike most films about aging people, which
Mm.
are necessarily really really grim and sad. He said, let's make this fun, because that's what these two are. A lot of the times, I mean,
Mm.
even when it comes to the subject of death, they treat it with levity. They treat it with, yeah, so it'll come. What's the big deal? So, so I think that my editor and I, of course, I was greatly involved, but he fell in love with these two women. Actually, the entire crew fell in love with them. We just adored them.
Yeah.
And sadly, when the younger one, Sudha Bua, passed away a couple of weeks ago, everybody from the crew was so deeply sad, and they all said to me that, I didn't expect to feel it this much, for considering this is a person that my editor never even met,
Yeah.
and the others only knew for a week. So I think that, old people, that's the whole special thing about old people, is that their vast experience of life, gives them this feeling of an entire universe that is almost like an anchor to the rest of us. And when an old person goes, we that's what we kind of tend to feel that we've lost.
How is Auntie Radha doing?
So she's not in the village home anymore for now. She's living with the son that was in the film as well. He came when he took me to the fields, and showed me in the rice and the wheat fields. Um,
So,
yeah, so she is staying with him now. Of course, she's gonna be extremely lonely. She says that the thing that she misses the most is that bed on which they used to just for most of the day lie. They used to eat from that bed. They used to lie in that bed and talk to each other till late night.
and I loved Auntie Sudha's newspapers too, and the articles that she would read out. It was hilarious. It was absolutely. So we have lots of comments from our viewers, and if you give me a moment, I'm going to try
Yes.
to read some of those comments. So Kalpa says it was a delightful film. Thank you so much for making it. Let me just try and read all of them. Um, and वहाँ पैदा हुआ जहाँ औरतों और पैसों की कोई कीमत नहीं है.
Yes, this is a
इस
line by Radha Bua in it, that when it's such a telling line, which it was just a line she threw in there. She wasn't trying to say anything highly philosophical or meaningful, but she basically did end up saying that, yes, ours is a culture in which a woman isn't valued as much as she should be.
I made a note of that too. I made a note of that exact same statement, and I was going to ask you. I mean, why did she say that? What do you think in her life led her to say that?
Of course,
We are born in a family where both money and women were undervalued.
yes. So I think that the idea being that both have spent their lives in service to
Mm.
to men mostly. The older one to her husband, of course, and she had
Mhm.
4 sons. So and then after that, their children, the aunt's grandchildren.
Uh,
So yeah, so in India, you kind of just spend your whole life for others, if you're from a kind of a middle class setup, where your own dreams and ambitions are often less important than the dreams of your children and the dreams of your husband, and so you're always supporting someone.
You're always in a supporting role. So
Yes,
it's
yes,
really good that they could make their own decisions, even if it was a
yes,
decision. No. And those
yes.
peacocks, those are unreal. I mean, it was so
I
beautiful.
know, I know.
It was beautiful. And I like the way the sound element in the film too throughout. It was, muted, allowing for nature sounds. It was really beautiful. I'm going to read out one more question or comment here. She says the lady helper who comes to the house at 5 a.m. and leaves at 5 p.m. is not tired by the end of the day. And how marvelous is that? And that was a comment that was made. So I wanted to also ask you to maybe tell our audience a little bit about the story behind the story. Well, while you were there for a whole week, can you recall something, anything that was absolutely hilarious or challenging, or maybe even something that you will take away with you, or a memory that was created that you'll treasure?
Um, Lots actually. I mean, from the time that I arrived there,
Hmm.
the in the film, the scene of me arriving
Yeah.
is actually me arriving there for the first time. So it wasn't, rehearsed at all or anything like that. I
Uh-huh.
was coming to their home for the first time, and the camera person decided to, shoot it. So
Uh,
so I think that from there, the the
yeah.
absolute delight, the delight for them to have us, visit them. um,
Yeah.
I mean, why should we? Okay, I understand that we're making a film which
Mhm.
which which they kind of lose awareness about after a while, but it's
Exactly.
just this is a very Indian small town sort of mentality, where they just love to have you over, look after
Yeah.
you. The minute we arrived, they immediately wanted to feed us, and you know, so they made us sit down at the dining table and eat. And they both just sat there on the side looking at us and saying, okay, do you want more, can we get you something more? So this kind of hospitality, and love. And so from the very first moment that we arrived there, the crew was completely just, besotted. And after that, every day, we would, during lunchtime, of course, we would all just generally just lie. They have two other rooms where we would just sort of lie back
Yeah.
in bed, and and uh, and rest for 15 minutes, or think about, or just relax. And in fact, that's the reason that the lady who said that she doesn't get tired despite being there 12 hours, um,
Mhm.
is because they work a lot, and then they just relax for some time. They just sit there, hang there, talk to each other, gossip with each other, um,
Mhm.
and then they get back to work, and then they watch television for some time. So it's a home away from home, for them.
Yeah.
um, and and the thing is that when we were leaving, that's the
Yeah.
part that actually is not in the film. When all of them,
Yeah.
they all just had tears in their eyes to say bye to us. And and the domestic help, I just looked at them and I embraced them so tight that they were really surprised, because there is this kind of thinking that, oh, somebody who's, we are the help in this house, and so it's an unusual thing for people to embrace each other,
Mhm.
because of the so-called class differences that exist, which don't exist in my mind at all. So they were all really sad to see us go. And then in the night when I reached home, um,
Oh,
my aunts told me that they kept saying, when will they be back, when will they be back?
what a compliment. What a compliment. In fact, I was going to ask you, with all that, in all that footage, were there other things, compelling things that you felt you could have included that you didn't? and maybe
Absolutely, absolutely. There was a lot actually.
there was something you felt, well, it didn't fit, but this was something.
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot. I mean, my the editing took a long time. It took us about 6 months to get everything together. And I and my editor had met several fights because there was stuff that I wanted to bring in, and then there was stuff that he wanted to bring in, which I didn't think was required. So that's what I mean. Editing is a great process because of that. So yeah, so there was a lot of stuff, but one decides, how long. I mean, I honestly wish the film could have been longer, but I think that's a good thing to feel at the end of a film.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. Because I just felt it kept us so engaged, and it was so pure and so perfect. It was absolutely lovely. I'm going to read some comments right here. Love the film, funny, poignant, and profound. How did you even think about this wonderful movie? And the other comment is, so sorry to hear Auntie Sudha passed away. It's amazing. She says on camera that Auntie Radha is older, and naturally she will go first. Um, and she said you were so warm all through Tanuja towards everyone. So those are some of the comments
Well,
that
I have to
came.
add here that my sound designer, he had quite a difficult time navigating my extreme laughter, because I've laughed a lot in the film, and I tend to laugh in real life a lot. So he just was like, I'm having such a difficult time dealing with your laugh.
But isn't that lovely? I mean, there was so much happiness in this film. Um,
Yeah.
so did your aunts watch it then, and what did they have to say about it?
Yes, yes, they did. So, the thing is that they saw it and they said that, yeah, it's nice enough. I mean, they didn't really, they weren't hugely impressed, in the sense
Yeah,
when I first suggested this idea, the younger one especially wondered what the big deal is, what is the fuss all about. So she wasn't even sure that
that's
she
true.
didn't understand why I wanted to make a film on them. So they did not consider themselves as really worthy subjects. And then
Yeah,
once they saw it, they said they enjoyed it. They had smiles on their faces, but to them it wasn't what it was for us. It's so special because we adore them. They're watching themselves and they're like, yeah, nice. And then they went on to talk about other stuff. So that was their response. But I have to add here that the younger one, Sudha Bua, she repeatedly would say to me, that you she would say it in Hindi, that tumne humko amar kar diya, that you've given us everlasting life,
yeah,
which I would always reply to her, that that who has given who everlasting life is what remains to be seen, which, because I, as a filmmaker, my
mhm,
name will forever, long after I'm gone, long after, every the crew isn't here anymore, our names will still be on a film. So
right.
they gave us, in a sense, everlasting life.
The opportunity to be immortal,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And someone else said battle about the saris was really cute. I like the big partition that they had between their cupboards as well. That was really
Yes.
funny. Yeah. No, the film really, really makes me laugh. So tell us a little about your journey. And there are many filmmakers watching us as well today. But tell us a little about your journey. You started as a television journalist, and then you ventured into films. What drove you?
I think storytelling is something that I've always loved.
Mhm.
In my house, my mother is a writer, and she's written very few but really good films. She's written Prem Rog by Raj Kapoor. She wrote Chandni by Yash Chopra, and yeah, and 1942, A Love Story by Vinod Chopra. So she has written few but beautiful films, and Kareeb Kareeb Single's original story was a radio play that she had written. And so it all, in a sense, comes down from there. We were all, when we were kids, me, my brother happens to be Vikram Chandra, the writer of Sacred Games. He's an author. Yeah, and my sister is Anupama Chopra, who heads the Mami Film Festival. So she is a critic on the other side of all, of the fence. um, so yeah,
Congratulations for that.
so yeah. She does not review and critique my films though, because there's a conflict of interest, of course. uh, so yeah. So we were always encouraged to read and write, and so it felt like a natural progression when I studied at Temple University in Philadelphia. I did a master's in filmmaking there, but I always knew that I wanted to come back to India to make movies, because Hindi movies is what I wanted to be a part of. And
Mm.
and when I came back, I knew that female protagonist was going to be my area of passion,
Mm.
and it has consistently been that. It is not something that is just an ideological thing. It
Mm.
is genuinely what the stories I want to tell are genuinely about women. I mean, that's the
That
area that
drives.
I find. Yeah, and it's an inexhaustible treasure house of stories, because Hindi movies have not even begun to tell the story of the Indian woman,
Right.
um,
Right.
and for me, this has only just increased over my career, where I've wanted to do this more and more. Auntie Sudha Aunty Radha, of course, belongs very much in that category. My next
Mm.
projects are very much with stories of women. Um, the other film that showed at your festival, A Monsoon Date, very much about a woman.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, so this is what I love, and this is what I'd like to do throughout my career. I've,
And
of
what?
course, I just have to add here that I've faced a lot of um, resistance because of that, because mainstream cinema only now has begun to include movies and stories of women with more sort of readiness, or with more sort of
Right.
excitement. When I started out, this was not something that producers and distributors were excited about at all, because they used to think that audiences are not interested. And even now, there are more films with female stories, but very few. Even now, they're just not nearly as many as there should be.
Absolutely. I think you make a wonderful point. Yep. Um, and I'm so glad that you're doing that, because we do need to see more of our stories told, and like you said, there's this is just a treasure chest of stories waiting to come out. So there are a few more comments that I would like to. Someone said, yes, that's an excellent statement. Let me see if I can just make this larger so I can just read this out. Yeah. So here's a comment. What was so touching to me was the sentiment that all the help had felt that serving elders is blessed work in that part of India. Unfortunately, that is quite rare in India these days. What are Tanuja's feelings about this and the state of India today?
Yes, I absolutely agree that it's a tragedy that old people are really. I mean, we use the word retire, basically, which means that they are of less value, huh?
Yes. Yes. They're not good for anything, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So which is an absolutely inaccurate thing to believe. It's just not plain true. It's not the truth. Old people have so much of value
Mhm.
that we can learn. That we can imbibe, and we can better our lives. And I don't even think that I can list those things, because there's so many. Not least of which is the how to how to approach the ends of our lives with grace. It's a huge thing that we all need to learn. And I think that we sort of begin to think that they will not contribute anything to our lives, and so we are better off without them. The country itself it's a young country, meaning large population is made of youth, and I think that everything, all businesses, all industry, everything is geared for the youth, which is really the wrong way to go. I mean, we have to take an absolute about turn, and in fact have orient the young people in the direction of old people, meaning that young people can actually improve their lives by making old people, by making the aged a part of our lives as well. I'm not a young person anymore, of course, but I'm saying that anybody who is from 18 to 50 should consider old people to be institutions of education, actually. And we should value them, we should look after them, which is also why I love the idea that these two old ladies don't depend on anyone. They don't depend on their children, they don't depend on their families, in the sense that it's the two of them looked after by their help, and of course there's two of them looked after by six people. So they're kind of living the life of luxury, which they deserve completely.
Yeah.
um,
They have their own
so
earnings and they're self-made women, which is
yes, yes,
also lucky to see,
yes,
women of
yes,
that age, that era, being
yes.
so self-made. Yeah. There's a question from the audience, and they said, has COVID and did COVID change their lifestyle? This is something they probably would not have anticipated. And what was their reaction to this? Did they?
um, them as well as my own mother. My own mother would exclaim every day of the lockdown that, I mean, what is this? For them, this is like, they never imagined they'd see something like this. None of us imagined we'd see something like this. So, but as for my, as for my aunts, they
Yeah,
actually, in the villages, um, it actually, there's less of it than in the big cities.
that's right.
um, so the two of them, as well as their domestic help, were fine. Of course, Auntie Sudha isn't there anymore, but they continued to be in wonderment about it. But of course, they were fine, and not anybody they knew, or not anybody around them was afflicted. But yes, they continued to watch TV and hear about it. So they were, and watch the world come in the grips of something we've never seen before.
Correct. Correct. But yes, I know. I mean, and as you said that, what is this? I can imagine that, especially being said in Hindi.
in
Everybody.
hindi in Hindi, let me tell you what it was that, uff, इस कोरोना ने दुनिया के नाक में दम कर दिया है.
Yeah. I know. Auntie Sudha said, well, if I go, I'd like to go suddenly with a heart attack. And
Yes.
did she pass suddenly?
I mean, I'm just really sad that she didn't. She did have a long illness for several months, um, and so she was. By the time she left us, she really was very sick
Right.
and was ready to go. But like she said in the film, that through her life, she's not been a really well person physically. And she had grown tired of sort of carrying the
Yeah.
load. So she, and it was really, really cute. Such an aspiration to have, such a peculiar aspiration to have, that may I just go suddenly,
Yeah.
and then and then to be so wrong about it, which is just, well, life doesn't ever let you off the hook, I guess.
doesn't. There's always a surprise around the corner, and you just don't know where, where things go. But what a delight! I mean, such a delight talking to you, Tanuja. It was lovely talking to you. We absolutely love this film, and I want
Thank
to,
you.
yes, absolutely, and I want to just take you into another film of yours that's at our festival as well. It's called A Monsoon Date, and I know several of our audiences watched this film and they loved it. Um, and I would love to hear um, how you came upon this story, and it was told so well, and I think using Konkana and Sharma in it too, um, really helped because the this was such a surprise ending. No one expected that.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. The thing with the A Monsoon Date is it is actually inspired from the true life story of the writer, who's my very dear friend, Ghazal Dhaliwal. She also was my co-writer in Kareeb Kareeb Single.
Yeah.
So it is her life story in a sense that, she was born a boy,
Mhm.
and she realized before long, she realized that she wasn't comfortable in the body that she was born with. She did not, yeah, that she did not feel like she felt in every cell of her being a woman and not a man.
Mhm.
Um, and unlike many families in India, her parents were extremely supportive when they when she first spoke to them about it. They were extremely supportive. She had a surgery done, and today she's a really beautiful, talented, fulfilled woman, and a really dear friend to me. So she had often told me about you know sometimes the lack of a kind of a really beautiful love life. She's had some beautiful love as well. Not It hasn't always been like this, uh, but there have been incidents where, where when a person finds out, she always used to say that, okay, so now after the first couple dates, that I have a little something to say. uh, and then when she would come out to them, invariably a lot of them would walk away, which is a real tragedy. And to me, that always just stayed with me, and I said that, that we must make a film about this. And this is in Bollywood. I don't think that I would get funding to make a feature film on this subject, although it certainly deserves a feature film. Yeah. But a short film, one can make stories about just about anything, and all the stuff that one cannot make about in a Bollywood film. So I was happy to get funding for a short film. And Konkana, in fact, I called her, and on the phone itself, she said, I'd love to do this. And
Okay.
so we had a brief shoot. Of course, it was very difficult shooting in the rain. Uh, but it was just a 3-day shoot, and extremely, again, fulfilling for me to be able to tell a story that speaks for equality. So it's not just women, right? I want to speak. I mean, for me, my passion is also speaking for equality for LGBTQ people, for say the mentally or the physically disabled people, and so and in India specifically, the underprivileged or the Dalits, kind of a caste system that still persists to this day. Um, so my again so the thing that I love to speak about, and I think that if one doesn't speak about it, to my mind, it's a waste of cinema. If you don't speak to some socially to some social prejudice or some social injustice, that speak against it, I think cinema should be used to speak for that.
Well, that is so well said. We are so proud that you've taken the stand to use cinema as a voice. And I think, you know, as you know, in India, it goes to the masses and people need
Yes.
to hear these stories. And we're so glad that you're doing these stories and that more and more people, get used to the idea of things that they probably had never heard of or weren't familiar with. It was an absolutely beautiful film. It really touched me, as I can see, lots of folks are saying, "Oh gosh, it was beautifully narrated, beautiful film." So thank you, Tanuja. Two beautiful films from you,
Thank
and
you.
we are so fortunate to have had the opportunity to actually, play them to our audience. And I appreciate all the trouble you took as well to make sure we got the films, because I know we had back and forth, which was fun too. But thank you so
Yeah.
much for
Thank you
being
so
here.
much, and I'm so happy to that my films showed there, because I mean, this is the reason one makes movies, is for people to watch, and to for people to, hopefully, if a filmmaker is lucky to take the film home with them, and have it sort of stay in their minds. And so I'm so happy that your audiences were able to watch my films.
And we are now going to be announcing the films that are nominated. And I have to tell you, both your films have a spot in the nominations. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Love, lovely. Tanuja. And I hope we get to meet, and I hope our paths cross again. And I look forward to hosting your next film. And we should talk.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and then I'd like to just chat with you for a minute or so after.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
audience,
you.
with us.
क्या तुम्हारा सबसे सुखी टाइम है ये?
इसमें कोई शक नहीं।
और तुम भी तो सुखी हो बुआ।
मैं तो सुखी हूँ।
हाँ, मतलब सुखी ही हूँ।
हाँ बिल्कुल।